Well, we have got an interesting morning today. Let's get some tea. This is going to be that type of morning. I figured there's not really a better way to wake up and start your day than looking at some Bible verses that are maybe a bit weird, obscene, maybe ones that people like to ignore. Let's just see how absurd these are. So for some context, I was raised Catholic growing up. My mom made me go to Catholic school. At the beginning of schooling, I most certainly was very Catholic. I very much believed everything. I was an altar girl. For some reason, my church decided to confirm me when I was in second grade, so I never really had the full brain development to understand what was happening when I was confirmed. Probably around the end of my high school years, when I was probably 16, 17, 18, I started to really question what was going on. Once I got out of high school, I didn't ever really look at the Bible again because I had lost a lot of faith, love, respect for religion as a whole. This will have been a long time since I've looked at a Bible, is what I'm trying to get at. This is going to be quite interesting for me because maybe now as an adult, I can put some more context to it, if that makes sense. All right, so we're going to start off with this article from Salon, 11 kinds of Bible verses that Christians love to ignore. So I thought this would be a really easy one to dip our toes in, get a good starting point as to where we are. We're probably going to see some redundancy of quotes, I assume, because there's got to be some spicy ones. Let's begin, shall we? So I know this one. This one is like pretty popular. She lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys and whose emission was like that of horses. I'm going to be honest, as a child reading this, I probably would not have understood what this actually meant. But as an adult looking at this, I think Ezekiel here has got like penis envy or something. Maybe I'm being a little too direct and obviously the whole context is not entirely known to me, but I would definitely like to know why in a supposed religious text something like this is the vibe, like something like this is okay. It doesn't make sense to me that if you're reading a text for the sake of learning, knowing this information seems unwarranted. Perhaps just me.
Content warning. Mention of sexual assault.
So let's see. This one comes from Deuteronomy. You will be pledged to be married to a woman, but another will take her and rape her. What? Hold up. You will build a house, but you will not live in it. You will plant a vineyard, but you will not even begin to enjoy its fruit. Your ox will be slaughtered before your eyes, but you will eat none of it. Your donkey will be forcibly taken from you and will not be returned. Your sheep will be given to your enemies, and no one will rescue them. The Lord will afflict your knees and legs with painful boils that cannot be cured, spreading from the soles of your feet to the top of your head. So I'm reading this one of two ways. The literal way. The other way that I'm reading this is that these are all just references or what do they call it? Like an analogy, I think, that it's all an analogy, that the woman is essentially still property. She is the house, but you will not live in it. She is the vineyard, but he will not enjoy the fruit of the vineyard. Like, do you get what I'm saying? It's strange. It's very strange. Do not wear clothing woven of two kinds of material, from Leviticus 19:19. And then the other one, also from Leviticus, is ye shall not round the corners of your heads. Couple assumptions here. One, Leviticus, bit of a hard ass. Don't know what that's about. Number two, the first one, do not wear clothing woven of two kinds of material. I find that kind of funny, kind of interesting, because a vast majority of clothing these days are like blends of different kinds of materials. So just something to keep in mind when you see the Catholic Karens screaming. It's like, oh, hey, that, sweatshirt you got at Kohl's, that's probably a polyester wool blend or something like that. Like that's two kinds of material, honey. Ye shall not round the corners of your heads. I'm not 100% sure what that's in relation to. It's a little weird to me. Anyway, we'll go to silly food rules. I'm going to ignore whatever they wrote. Let's go to some of these silly food rules. Thou shalt not boil a kid in its mother's milk. What? Who's doing that? Who has enough mother's milk to boil a kid in it? That just seems weird to me. When a woman has a discharge, if her discharge in her body is blood, she shall continue in her menstrual impurity for 7 days. And whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Everything also on which she lies during her menstrual impurity shall be unclean, and everything on which she sits shall be unclean. Leviticus, again, whoever is having their period, you're dirty, because a normal, natural cycle for your body is deemed bad. It's no wonder a lot of these Christian dudes, though, for the record, something like this really clears up a lot for me, because I know just this morning I was just being real pissy about how a bill in the Senate or whatever that would have solidified Roe v. Wade, even if the Supreme Court turns it over, failed because of Joe Manchin, a fucking dinosaur. This explains like their stance that a normal natural cycle in being a person who has menstrual cycles is suddenly unclean. Like, what? When men fight with one another and the wife of one draws near to rescue her husband from the hand of him who is beating him, and he puts out her hand and seizes him by the private parts, then you shall cut off her hand. Like, two men are fighting and your wife comes around and she decides to put her hand out to be like, all right, Johnny, I'm literally grabbing you by the balls and we're going home. You've had enough fighting for the day. You cut off her hand? This is the only context I can get from it. And I just want to know in what scenario two dudes are fighting and the wife comes out, grabs him by the balls. It's like, Johnny, you fought enough today. Get your ass home. It's time for supper. Like, I just want to know. All right, let's talk about some of God's temper tantrums. All right, this one comes from, first one's from 2 Kings. Elisha went up to Bethel. As he was walking along the road, some boys came out of the town and jeered at him. Get out of here, Baldy, they said. Get out of here, Baldy. He turned around, looked at them, and called down a curse on them in the name of the Lord. Then 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. What the fuck? Hold on. Like, a lot of these sometimes feel like romanticized diary entries, if that makes sense. Like, that's what I've started to see it as an adult. This person was bald and was like, I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of being like made fun of for being bald. Well, guess what? Last time someone called me baldy, I called a curse down upon them and 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. All right, seems fake, but go off. Early in the morning, as Jesus was on his way back to the city, he was hungry. Seeing a fig tree by the road, he went up to it, but found nothing on it except leaves. Then he said to it, "May you never bear fruit again." Immediately, the tree withered. So Jesus is hungry. He sees a fig tree and he goes, wow, this tree is not producing fruit, but I am hungry. Therefore, fuck you. You will never be a fig tree that bears fruit again. I don't know. It just seems like a temper tantrum to me. It sounds like this dude, Jesus dude, is spoiled brat, or you know what? It's even nice guy-ish. This is kind of, if I can't have you, nobody can. Is that not the same energy? I'm not saying it's the same thing, but is the energy not the same? It's just a little spooky. That's all I'm saying. And I don't like nice guys. So this is a little bit uncomfortable to me. So let's go 6 times when the Bible is worse than Satan. Oh boy. Now, therefore, kill every male among the little ones and kill every woman who has known man intimately. But all the girls who have not known man intimately, spare for yourselves. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. Do we need to explain that one? Next one. This one literally talking about how this dude killed someone who was practicing a separate religion, someone who, you know, was tolerant of early Christians, and Josiah was not tolerant of other religions, which seems to be kind of a motive that goes on within Christians, is they're not actually tolerant of other religions. And so they killed them on their own altar in their own sacred place, and then burned their bones on the altars too. That's pretty fucking disrespectful, just going to say. And the word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. The word became flesh. I know it's not the literal translation of it being flesh, but it's meaning it became solid and made his dwelling among us. Tyler says, no, it was right, among us. Oh my God, it's an Among Us joke. That really went over my head. God damn it. It's okay, fine. It's a pretty sus. John 1:14 is pretty sus then. I'm so sorry. I'm so dense. I was sitting here trying to interpret this and go, why is this funny? And the answer was Among Us. Oh my God, I'm so stupid.
Content warning. Talk regarding slavery.
The reality is that the Bible says much more in support of slavery than against it. Shocking. Shocking. You may purchase male or female slaves from among the foreigners who live among you. You may also purchase the children of such resident foreigners, including those who have been born in your land. You may treat them as your property, passing them on to your children as a permanent inheritance. You may treat your slaves like this, but the people of Israel, your relatives, must never be treated this way. This is pretty clear what it's saying. I don't think there's really any interpretation here. Historically, things start to make sense if this is what people truly believed. It starts to make sense, not in a good way. The next thing about slaves is slaves, obey your earthly masters with deep respect and fear. Serve them sincerely as you would serve Christ. So is this directions for slaves? That's like, hey, if you're religious, then you'll love to serve your slaves just like you serve your God. Pretty self-explanatory, not in a good way. Okay, bizarre death penalties. So first one, if a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and mother lay hold on him, and bring him out unto the elders of his city, and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of the city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard, and all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So you heard this. If you go through a teenage rebellion phase, you can be put to death. Which I know a lot of my friends, when they turned 18 and they were all going through their, kind of rebellion phase and stuff, they were kicked out of the house. And I wonder if it has roots from quotes like this, where if your child doesn't listen to them, literally like just abandon them.